Hello, my friends. Imagine this for a moment. Someone asks you a simple question in English, just one question. Where are you from? You know exactly how to answer. The answer is right there in your mind. But somehow, between your brain and your mouth, something gets stuck. You pause. Your mind suddenly goes blank. The words are inside you. You can almost reach them, but they refuse to come out. The silence feels longer than it really is. Your face starts to feel warm. Your heart beats a little faster. And one thought keeps repeating in your head. Why can't I just speak? This has happened to you before. Maybe once, maybe many times. And each time you might think, my English is not good enough. Maybe you blamed your vocabulary. Maybe you blamed your grammar. Maybe you even blamed your accent. But here's something important to know. The problem was not your English. The real problem is that your brain has not learned how to speak English comfortably yet. Not because your brain is weak or slow. It's because speaking a language and studying a language are not the same thing. You can learn lots of English words and grammar rules, but your brain also needs practice using them in real conversations. And that kind of training is very different from just studying from a book. Can I ask you a simple question? Have you ever listened to someone speaking English and understood everything they said? You knew exactly what they were talking about, but then they asked you a question, and suddenly your mind went blank. You knew the answer. The words were somewhere in your head. But when it was time to speak, nothing came out. And in that moment, you didn't just feel embarrassed. You felt confused. You started wondering, if I can understand English, why can't I speak it? That's a really good question. And today, we're going to answer it. Clearly, honestly, and in a way that nobody has explained to you before. Before we go any further, I want you to remember something important. You are not bad at English. You are not slow. And you are not someone who just can't learn languages. Many people believe that about themselves, but it's simply not true. I've seen this happen again and again. Smart, hardworking people can understand English very well. Yet when it's time to speak, they suddenly become quiet. The reason is simple. Understanding a language and speaking a language are two different skills. You already have one of those skills. You can understand English. Now it's time to build the other one. And that's exactly what we're going to work on today. By the end of this video, you will clearly understand why your brain suddenly freezes when you try to speak English. You will see what is really happening inside your mind during that uncomfortable silence. And even more importantly, you will learn simple, real, and 9 practical brain training tips to improve it. Not overnight, not like magic, but in a real way that works if you practice it. That is my promise to you today. There is a boy who studied English for 7 years in school. 7 full years of grammar rules, vocabulary lists, reading passages, and written exams. He passed all of them, and his written English was actually quite good. But one day, a tourist stopped him on the street and asked, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the railway station?" He understood every single word. But in that moment, he panicked. His mouth opened, then closed. He couldn't speak. He just pointed in the direction of the station, gave an awkward smile, and quickly walked away. 7 years of English, gone in just 5 seconds of fear. That boy was not stupid. What happened to him is something millions of English learners experience every single day. And the reason is actually simple. School taught him English as a subject, not as a skill for real communication. Nobody trained his brain to use English in real conversations. And speaking confidence is a skill, just like riding a bicycle. It only grows when you actually practice doing it in real situations. So why does your brain freeze? Here is the real answer. When you try to speak English, your brain is doing 5 things at the same time. It is searching for the right words. It is putting those words into a sentence. It is checking the grammar. It is handling your nervousness. And it is also watching the other person's face while all of this happening. 5 things at once, in a language that still doesn't feel fully natural. No wonder your mind goes blank. It is not a sign of weakness, it is simply too much at one time. And when something feels like overload, the solution is not more pressure, it is practice, until speaking becomes automatic. Here is your first brain training tip. And it is so simple that you might almost ignore it. But please don't ignore it. Every morning, before you check your phone or talk to anyone, say 3 sentences out loud in English about anything. For example, today is Monday. I feel a little tired. I want to drink tea. That is enough. Just 3 simple sentences, spoken out loud in your own voice. Why does this matter? Because your brain tends to settle into the first language you use in the day. If you spend the first few hours speaking your native language and then suddenly try to switch to English, your brain resists. But if English is the first thing you say in the morning, even for a few seconds, your mind becomes a little more open to it for the rest of the day. Let me ask you something that might feel a little uncomfortable. When you imagine yourself speaking English in your mind, how do you see it going? Do you see yourself speaking smoothly, confidently, and naturally? Or do you picture yourself making mistakes, getting confused, and people correcting you? Be honest with yourself, because whatever you imagine again and again is what your brain starts preparing for. Your imagination is not just daydreaming, it is a kind of practice, and it can become the wrong kind of practice if you are constantly imagining failure instead of progress. This is something researchers have studied very carefully. Athletes use it. Speakers use it too. Before an important moment, they close their eyes and imagine success. Not perfect success, but simple and clear success. A tennis player imagines hitting the ball correctly. A singer imagines their voice flowing smoothly. And interestingly, the brain reacts to these imagined moments in a way that is similar to real practice. So from today, when you imagine yourself speaking English, don't imagine failure. Imagine it going okay. Not perfect, just okay. Imagine the words coming out. Imagine yourself continuing, even if you make a mistake. This small change in your thinking starts to slowly retrain your brain. Now let me tell you something important about the word fluency, because I think many people misunderstand it. Most learners believe that being fluent means speaking very fast, never pausing, never making mistakes, and always using perfect English. But that is not fluency, that is performance. Real fluency is much simpler. It means being able to express your thoughts clearly enough for another person to understand you. That's it. A person who speaks slowly, pauses sometimes, uses simple words, but communicates clearly, that person is fluent. Speed is not fluency. Clarity is fluency. And clarity is something you can build much faster than you think. Have you ever noticed something interesting? When you are relaxed, talking to a close friend, joking with a family member, or speaking in a situation where nobody is judging you, your English often becomes much better. The words come more quickly. Your sentences feel more natural. You don't freeze as much. But the moment you feel watched, tested, or judged, everything suddenly becomes harder. Here is your second brain training tip. Find one person where speaking English feels safe. It could be a younger sibling, a friend who is also learning English, or a classmate who wants to improve. The important thing is that they won't judge your mistakes, because they are learning too. Then make a simple agreement. Every day, for just 5 minutes, speak only English. Not perfect English, just English. Don't worry about grammar mistakes. It doesn't matter if you say, I go to market yesterday, instead of, I went to the market yesterday. What matters is that you spoke.